Hey guys, and welcome back to Betwixt the Books. It's Michaela here, and I'm here to talk about fanfiction today. It has been a hot minute since I talked about fanfiction. I still have weird anxiety about doing this because I feel like it's such a niche video that only like a very particular type of person wants to hear about. But I'm going to fight that because I know that there are niche people out there who do want to hear about it, including me. Like, I still like getting recommendations from other people who read fanfictions. So there is that. I'm going to give 3 recommendations today. I'm not going to rate them because, again, they're fanfictions. They're free writing that people put out on the internet. It doesn't feel right to rate that in the same way that I would with a book. I just want to talk about some of the fanfictions that I've read recently that I really enjoyed, and I think more people should read and enjoy as well. If you read fanfiction and there's some fics that you want me to check out, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. But hopefully you enjoy some of these recommendations. Maybe it's something you've heard of, maybe it's something you haven't heard of. I got a couple different options for you, all of which are interesting in their own way. I think I'm gonna leave the weird one for last. So hold out for like a not weird necessarily, but niche, I guess, the nichest of these fics for last. But it's also, I think, my favorite out of the bunch. It's the one that I like still think about today. And as that one was coming out, I was reading it chapter by chapter and like waiting for that email to show up in my inbox. But all of these are on AO3. I'm going to link them all below, so if you're interested in one or you just want to try it, it's going to be down there. For those of you who don't know, I have been hyperfixated on Steddie for like 2 years. Steve Harrington and Eddie Munson from Stranger Things, so all of these recommendations are going to be in the Steddie Fandom. But I am not opposed to reading from other fandoms if there is something interesting to read. I'd be willing to check it out, but like majority of my fics are going to be from Steddie Fandom, so all 3 of the fics I'm talking about today are Steddie Fics. The first fic I'm going to talk about today is kind of a Wherein Munson fic. It's not solely from his perspective, but I love fics that incorporate Wherein pretty heavily. It's a fic where Eddie's dad dies in prison, and Wherein tells Eddie about this. Steve and Eddie are very close, but they aren't together yet. And in order to sort of take his mind off of it, Wherein decides to take Eddie fishing, and Eddie asks if Steve can come, so all 3 of them go fishing out in the lake. And it's a really heartfelt fic about coming out and falling in love with someone and being there for someone when they're processing their grief and all of the mixed emotions that can come with that. Canonically from the show, we know that Eddie's dad is in prison. We know that Eddie has like a kind of mixed feelings on his relationship with his dad because his dad definitely sort of steered him down a path of grifting, I guess would be what it would be called. Teaching a child how to hotwire a car is not usually something that like an upstanding parent is going to do. So when he hears the news that his dad dies in prison, Eddie doesn't really have a reaction at first, and when he does finally have the reaction where he starts like trying to process what's going on, he has this guilt of feeling kind of relieved that his dad is gone. And I really liked this look at it at the same time as you're watching Steve and Eddie really get closer and closer together. You get stuff from Wayne's point of view. This fic did have Wherein as a queer adult who had a partner who ended up passing away but was a long-haul trucker. I like fics that give more interesting character information to a character that had 2 scenes. All that we really know about Wherein is that he loves Eddie very much. So yeah, any fics that sort of give them more of a relationship and more of a backstory where you get to see this paternal figure that really cares for Eddie and wants him to be the best that he can and care for him in any way that he can, it's really cute to see. And you also get to see Wherein taking care of Steve as well, who also has interesting things without when it comes to his relationship with his parents. So yeah, there was some really funny, like cute little things. There was a point where Eddie was, I think, writing in a journal, or maybe he was playing music or something. But Eddie's off by himself and Steve is just watching him. And Wherein comes up next to Steve and goes, "You gonna help me with this, or you gonna keep staring at my son?" Like such an intimidating parent thing, but in that same moment, he's just kind of teasing Steve for like loving Eddie and seeing that he loves Eddie, and they get to have a heart to heart of like, I'm not mad at you. Like, this isn't like a I'm gonna beat you up for being gay type thing. It was just really, really cute and really sweet and a little bit sad, but like overall just so heartwarming and such a cute little fic. So I loved it. I feel like more people should read it. Highly recommend that one. It's called I'm Glad I Get Forever to See Where You End by Steddie As She Goes. Again, it's going to be linked down below. So if that sounds interesting to you, if you like writing on grief, might be worth looking into. In a similar vein, the next story is also pretty close to canon. This one is an established relationship fic. It's called Help Me Make the Most of Freedom and of Pleasure by stellarpoint. Steve and Eddie have moved into an apartment together, and in an attempt to start healing and processing the trauma that happened to him as a teen, Steve goes on antidepressants. One of the side effects for him for the antidepressants that he's taking is that it severely lowers his sex drive, and actually makes it really hard / next to impossible for him to achieve orgasm. And this is a fic exploring how the two of them are sort of navigating this change in Steve's libido. Eddie's worried that Steve has lost interest in him because he doesn't seem really interested in it. And for a fic that seems like it's like rife with angst because of that like plot point, it's actually like really wholesome. With Eddie eventually saying to Steve, like, we could never have sex again and I would still want to be in a relationship with you, because Steve also has this anxiety of like Eddie's gonna get bored because Steve's not interested in having sex, and Eddie wants to have sex, so obviously he should want a partner that also wants that. But Steve in that moment just he just doesn't have a libido. He just doesn't. And seeing these two people say like no, sex isn't the end all be all of a relationship. If you are up to it, I'm up to it. I will wake up early and spend an hour, even if it's just for pleasure's sake. If you never come, that's fine. I just want to make you feel good, and if you're into it right now, we'll do it. I don't really mind. Or I'm not into it right now, but / I don't want to be touched right now, but I'm fine with you touching me / getting off on me, using me. I'll hold you, I'll touch you, but I don't really want anything on / in / touching me in the groin area. It was like really nice. I feel like a lot of ace people might really appreciate this fic because it kind of shows a side to a relationship and how to navigate a relationship with two different libidos at play at the same time. Someone who's like very sexually charged, who uses sex to wind down, someone who uses it to feel intimate with their partner, and another person who just wants to be near their partner, who wants to give them pleasure, who wants to love them, but doesn't necessarily need the same amount of sex that the other person is having, at least in that moment. And then also the anxiety of like the changes in libido, which happens just generally to a lot of people in their relationships. As your relationship progresses, usually the sex drive like lowers a little bit. And sort of how to navigate that. So yeah, it was really cute. It was sweet. That one's the shortest one of the 3 that I'm going to talk about today. But it was like really interesting to see an explicit fic that was focusing on more so intimacy than like smut necessarily. Okay, let's talk about the weird fic. And by the weird fic, it is an Omegaverse fic. So if Omegaverse isn't your thing, I totally get it. You don't have to listen past this point because you're not going to be interested in this. It is a Omegaverse. I would say, though, if you're someone who isn't, like, grossed out by Omegaverse but hasn't really dipped your toe into it, this might be an interesting one to pick up because it was very different from, like, most of the Omegaverse fics that are out there. It's called Build a Life With You by StarsHideYourFires. It's a historical Omegaverse fic, and the best way that I can pitch this fic is to say Little House on the Prairie, but make it steady. Eddie puts an ad in a newspaper looking for a wife, because he has recently inherited his family farm, and he has his younger brother who lost both of his parents. He's got to take care of his younger brother. He has to take care of this farm, and he can't do it on his own. So he puts out like a personal ad basically saying, if there is an Omega out there that would like to come get married, I'm offering, come here, come help. Steve used to be like a rich high society Omega in a city, but spoilers alert, come to find out he somehow wound up pregnant, so he's running away from that life after being disowned. He is not entirely forthright with Eddie at the moment that they get married about this being a thing that is up with him, but it doesn't really cause any strife for them in their relationship. And then as the course of the relationship goes through, they fall in love. Obviously, it's like a very nice match, and then you get all of your Stranger Things characters coming together to protect Steve when the father of Steve's child shows up trying to claim birthright, and they basically say, no, it's Eddie's. Babies are born early all the time, that sort of thing, to protect it. It had a really interesting view on how Omegaverse works and the way that people use gender in that case, which is one of the things I find so interesting about a lot of Omegaverse fics, is that gender is so complex in these worlds that it's really interesting for people like myself who are gender nonconforming, to see the like gray area and the intersex sort of stuff that goes on in these types of worlds. When you have Steve referred to as a mother and a wife, but also using he, him pronouns. Or in this world, Robin is an alpha, so Mr. Buckley, but at the same time, Robin is female. So, it's definitely interesting. It's a interesting take on it. Most Omegaverse fics, I feel like, are very much like explicit in like the heat sort of element, the like bonded pair, the soulmate sort of thing, and this one is much more focused on like what day-to-day life would have been like on the prairie in an Omegaverse world, with a little bit of a plot with the like baby stuff going on as well. It was like so interesting and so well done. So if you're looking for one, or if you've been intrigued but you never actually like dipped your toe into that world, this is definitely one that I think would be interesting. I totally get it if it's not for you. I totally get it. Not every fic that I read is for everyone. And Omegaverse definitely has that like Marmite quality to it. You're either into it or you're not, and that's how it is. So I would give it a try if you're at least open to it, but I totally understand if you're not. So yeah, those are some of the fics that I've read recently that I really loved and I think deserve more love, so I'm shouting them out. I feel like I might do a video where I talk about some of the fics that I read way back at the beginning of when I really got interested in Steddie, and maybe like reread them and talk about what captured me so much about these like early fics, or just see if they stand up after reading literally hundreds of Steddie fics at this point. Do those old original fics still like capture my interest at the same time? So if you're interested in that, stick around. Again, if you have any recommendations, even if it's not from the same fandom as me, I would be interested in reading them. And what else sort of fanfiction content-wise would you be interested in seeing from me? Because I've thought about making like an intro to fanfiction type thing. I filmed technically these. I just never edited them to a place where I felt like comfortable putting them out. But would that be interesting? Like how to get into fandom? Because I know that not everybody on our channel is already fandom centered. I think that we will have a joint review on Friday for you of a romance book. So if you're looking forward to that, that is also coming out soon. Talk to you again soon.